Hello, and welcome to Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 22 of Dungeon Meshi. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. Alright, so last we left off, Lias and the group have found themselves in this weird sort of, village where everyone's immortal by means of, effectively the Mad Mage's magic. And I guess even more importantly, there's talk about prophecy now and how Lias, bearing the sword that he does, is essentially prophesied to rule the dungeon in the end, which... that's all well and good. That would indicate like a good ending, but the thing that concerns me is that, including this episode, there's only 3 left, and I hesitate to think that everything could be wrapped up in such a short time frame, I mean, I don't truly know how the manga ends and all that, but I feel like if the prophecy goes as it has been presented, then that's a whole lot of stuff that needs to happen in a short period of time. Now that's interesting. I wonder if that's true, the idea that your sense of taste is like a muscle. I feel like that isn't necessarily true. Like, you would always be able to taste stuff, I guess, but, maybe like a lack of eating would, Well, I take that back. Maybe it is true. Like, if you're not used to eating things a lot, if you eat something particularly intense, that would be something. Okay, so this is where everything sort of goes wrong. Thistle, the Mad Mage, essentially got into dark magic and, sort of went down that rabbit hole. So, once again, elves really shouldn't practice dark magic or any of that stuff. I mean, I imagine, like, him casting a giant immortality spell was born out of, like, a good desire or something like that, or like a good intention perhaps, but man. Yeah, that really is spooky that all those little critters are just hanging around, and if what this guy's saying is to be believed, then a confrontation is basically inevitable. I mean, I just sort of hope that this isn't like the end, But at the same time, if it isn't, if it ends on a cliffhanger, who knows if we would get another season. I mean, granted, this is a bit of an unusual situation for Studio Trigger. They don't tend to adapt things too much, but at the same time, they don't tend to do season 2s either. Normally because there's no real need for it. Ooh. That's kind of spooky having to rely on those ghosts for travel. Like, I'd imagine the trip down to this city here was, disquieting. And I guess, speaking of disquieting, I can't say I blame some people for being a little skeptical about things. Ooh. I feel like there's no real good answer to that question, And given that you are immortal, like, who knows what the Mad Mage could do to you? And, like, you would have no way out of it. Ooh. Now that's interesting, a 3-dimensional compass. Or at least that's the impression I get from looking at it. And that a compass wouldn't work. That's not good, There's no real way to navigate, and I feel like if there's something disrupting a compass, then it's in all likelihood capable of disrupting other things too. Ooh. Yeah, if Izutsume remembers everything she did, that's gotta be a real kick in the knackers. Like, I mean, she certainly wasn't behaving like herself, and, fair enough, magic was in effect, but... man... So Senshi is somewhat familiar with these markings, and I guess the idea is that they help you find your way if you don't have a good sense of direction, but at the same time, I get the feeling there might be a little bit more to it. I take that back. I was wondering if maybe they would be like grave markers or something like that, but it seems like that's not really important. The more important thing would be Fallen, who seemingly showed up again. So I guess the interesting thing is, if this isn't Fallen, and if it is a griffin, Senshi certainly seems to want to eat something like that. And I mean, can you really blame the guy? Like, in terms of fantasy monsters, that would be... I would feel like one of the better things to eat. Although Senshi is now hesitant, which is interesting. Yeah, this is peculiar. He's being shifty. And he's saying, like, ooh, these mushrooms are more interesting. Alright, so he dislikes griffins, which, we could have picked up on easily enough, but I'm wondering if perhaps he's run afoul of them before. Because we don't really know much about Senshi aside from the fact that he likes to cook. And, griffins are nasty critters. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe, like, he had witnessed a griffin attack or something like that before. And against all odds, I do have to feel a little bit sorry for this griffin. Because, he doesn't really know what he's stumbled into. Oh. Yeah, this is certainly not like Senshi. Oh dear, indeed. I mean, I was talking about potentially what the Mad Mage might do to his immortal prisoners, but I feel like this is kind of on the same level. Senshi might be suffering maybe not a fate worse than death, but something comparable. I mean, if the mere prospect of a griffin was enough to have him cower and run away like that, then... man. Decidedly not good. I mean, I guess it's good that the gravity of the situation is kicking in. Like, they don't know where he went. If they don't find him, they can't revive him. And for him to just sort of be plucked up so suddenly, like, that's, certainly disconcerting. So I guess in the absence of anything else, magic is really the only thing they can do, you know, because how else is anyone else going to really track down a griffin? If nothing else, you know, it seems like Marcel knows what to do, but, you know, I'm not sure that this isn't dark magic of some variety, because, you know, they're taking meat and all that, and I don't know. And I guess the other downside is that this spell seems to cost a fair bit of food, which, you know, that's never a good thing if you're having to basically use up all your food to create a little familiar. Alright, well at least Marcel's not trying to get him to learn this too, even if he wants to. You know, I feel like such a spell in the hands of Laius would be a dangerous thing. Alright, so I guess this is just sort of confirming what we already sort of knew, that no one really knows much about anyone else in the group. And I guess Senshi especially, just because he's, you know, not liable to share information about himself. Ooh. That's an interesting little wrinkle there, that bits of his story don't add up. So it seems as though, I guess Senshi doesn't know much about the world. Like, you know, if he doesn't know much about halflings and all that, that would seem to indicate that perhaps he's never really been to the surface or wherever they would show up. Alright, so I guess the idea is that maybe he's not from the surface, as Chilchuk surmises, which, you know, I don't know why he sounds so horrified about that. It would make sense, because dwarves are just generally sort of subterranean creatures as it is. You know, they live in caves and stuff. I mean, if nothing else, it would be sort of similar to the orcs that live in the dungeon. Like, they have societies and all that. Like, it wouldn't be too big a stretch for dwarves to do the same, I should think. So I guess the question is now, seeing as how Marcel's created this little familiar, after it serves its purpose, are they gonna eat it? Wow, you know, that's, it's not what I thought it would look like. And you know what? I can't say I blame Laius for being a little disappointed. Ooh. Yeah, that's not good for, the familiar's visions to sort of overlap with your own. Like, that's gotta be horribly disorienting, but I feel like maybe you could just close your eyes and deal with it that way. Ooh. Yeah, this isn't a good situation, you know. I feel like, if somebody has to tend to Marcel while she's effectively blind and immobile, then, I don't know. I feel like this is a group that's ripe for another griffin attack, and certainly ill-prepared to handle it. Alright, so it seems like Marcel's plan worked. You know, they've found something which, in all likelihood, seems to be a nest. I found it interesting that Senshi was sort of, restrained within the nest. Like, that seems a bit odd. You know, I would have imagined that the griffin would have just, like, dropped him in it. I guess, you know, maybe it would make more sense if the griffin was intending to feed its young or something like that. You know, like Mama Bird style, but to just sort of leave him restrained, like, I feel like I don't know, I guess I just would have assumed a proper nest would be sort of like a bowl. You could just plunk him in there and then he would be stuck by virtue of having to contend with like a large fall instead. Alright, so here we go. Finally using Laius's knowledge here. Like, what would make an effective monster to combat a griffin? And I guess the idea would be maneuverability, really. So, like, these little meat penguins, you know, they're sort of an inefficient shape, which I guess is kind of why Laius was, rather nonplussed. I mean, at least now it looks properly monstrous. Maybe not monstrous, but more lifelike. And, you know, hopefully this poor little guy will be able to withstand dealing with the griffin for more than an instant. Although at the same time, I feel like if this little familiar is carrying around a rope, you know, that just kind of makes it a target. Which, I suppose the familiar is a better target than Senshi is. Ooh. So I'm just wondering, like, how much, I guess, sensory feedback is there? Like, does Marcel actually feel the pain a la Neon Genesis Evangelion, or is it more of like, when you fall from a great height in a video game and you sort of flinch by reflex? So, you know, as good as Laius's initial idea was, I don't think what he's doing is actually practical. I mean, it might look cool if you shape it like a dragon, but I don't know how it's actually going to help. So this is kind of an interesting change, that Marcel would effectively use magic and instinct to shape the monster. Because, you know, even though Laius had the right idea here, wow, you know, Laius is right, that is very underwhelming. But I guess if, by means of magical inspiration, it's the right creature for the job, you know, I guess that's all there is to it. But I find it interesting that she was essentially operating on instinct while coming up with a shape for it. Wow. So I would have imagined that this little creature would have just splattered itself coming into contact with the griffin, but I don't know, maybe it's something where it's... Yeah, okay, so it's so utterly fast and, I guess, needle-shaped that it can puncture the griffin with little difficulty, which, you know, that's no mean feat. I mean, being impaled by something like that, that's gotta hurt, 'cause it's like... I mean, it seemed to be like the diameter of your arm, give or take. Alright, well, since she's back and alive, you know, that's, certainly good. And frankly, there's probably no better vengeance to wreak on this griffin than, to eat it. Speaking of eating it, like, surely the... I was gonna say, surely they have to eat skyfish, right? And, man... I guess I don't blame Marcel for being upset about it, but I figured Senshi would have started cooking it. I also find it interesting that all the various ingredients were just sort of neatly layered. Okay, so we're not digging into it, I guess, but I figured there's going to be, you know, something sincere and heartfelt between Shilchuk and Senshi, especially because those two are the more adult of the group, for want of a better term. You know, if nothing else, they could come to an understanding even if Senshi doesn't normally think of Chilchuk as an adult, which he is. You know what? I don't think that's a bad fate for that poor skyfish. A little bit of fish and chips. Oh dear. Never ends with lies. Like, hey, summoning monsters might be a better way of cooking than, just cooking normally. And I guess it might be a cool thing to do once in a while, but like, you have to use up a lot of food to do it. Ooh. For Senshi not to be hungry, like, he's not renowned for his huge appetite or anything, but that feels, definitely out of character. And you know what? Good on Chilchuk, I guess, for sort of taking the initiative to break the ice here. Oh. A wife and daughters, plural. And we don't know anything about them. That's kind of a shame. I didn't realize he actually had a family. Ooh. Yeah, I think I know where this is going. He was originally part of a small mining crew, but, he's not anymore, so something clearly happened. And I guess given that Senshi... Oh, yeah, there we go. So that guy's got the helmet, so I think it's pretty clear that something bad happened. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. See you, Space Cowboy.